A Turkish scout stepped onto Philippine hardwood, carrying the weight of Europe behind him. He represented a system tied to the intensity of the EuroLeague, where height is currency and centimeters decide futures. He glanced at a Filipino prospect, checked a measurement sheet, and quietly dismissed him. Too small, too limited, not built for Europe. That sentence should have ended the story. Instead, it began one. The showcase was billed as a cultural exchange, but everyone inside the packed Manila arena understood what it truly was: opportunity. A Turkish club affiliated with the basketball Super League had flown in to evaluate prospects. Contracts were not guaranteed, but reputations were. Careers could tilt in a single night. And for one Filipino forward, it was never just about basketball. His name was Mateo Villanueva, 6'6" without shoes. Strong shoulders, modest wingspan, relentless motor. In local circles, he was known for rebounding against bigger imports in the Philippine Basketball Association scrimmages. But internationally, he was improving. To the scouts' trained European eye, Mateo was a statistical risk. Not tall enough to protect the rim. Not explosive enough to intimidate. On paper, he failed. Earlier that afternoon, during warm-ups, the Turkish scout stood near half-court speaking with local organizers. He gestured subtly toward Mateo and shook his head. For inches short for the position, he said, calm and clinical. The comment was not meant to wound. It was meant to assess. But words travel quickly in a small gym, and they reached Mateo before tip-off. He did not respond. He continued shooting corner jumpers, each release precise, each follow-through steady. His coach approached quietly. "They measure height," the coach whispered. "You measure effort." Mateo nodded once. He had grown up hearing variations of the same verdict. Too short for center. Too slow for guard. Too Filipino for Europe. He learned long ago that arguing wastes oxygen better used on the floor. When the game began, the Turkish front court asserted itself immediately. Two 7-footers established deep post position, elbows wide, carving space as if claiming territory. The first rebound Karo Medlong. A Turkish big secured it effortlessly, finishing through contact. The scout scribbled in his notebook. Size advantage confirmed. The early minutes seemed to validate everything he believed about European structure and physical standards. But Mateo was not studying height. He was studying timing. On the next possession, he anticipated the shot's trajectory before it left the shooter's hands. Instead of jumping early, he wedged his hips under the taller forward center of gravity. When the ball hit the rim, he rose half a second later than everyone else. He secured the rebound cleanly. No theatrics, just possession. That single rebound changed nothing on the scoreboard, but it altered rhythm. The Turkish players felt resistance where they expected compliance. Mateo began sealing lanes earlier, stepping into space before bodies arrived. He did not outleap opponents. He displaced them. Each possession became a quiet negotiation of angles, leverage, and anticipation. The scout looked up from his notebook more frequently now. By the end of the first quarter, Mateo had collected 6 rebounds. 3 defensive, 3 offensive. The Turkish bench grew louder, urging their bigs to box out with urgency. Height alone was no longer sufficient. Mateo's second jump, quick and unrelenting, kept possessions alive. The crowd sensed it. Murmurs built into applause. The underdog was not surviving. He was competing. In the second quarter, the physicality intensified. A Turkish center drove his forearm into Mateo's chest before a free throw attempt, attempting to establish dominance. Mateo absorbed the contact, slid his feet, and positioned himself perfectly inside the paint. When the ball ricocheted hard off the rim, he spun around the contact and secured it again. Another possession denied. Another assumption challenged. The scout leaned back in his seat. He stopped measuring standing reach and began measuring reactions. Mateo's footwork was economical, his positioning preemptive. He understood that rebounding was less about inches and more about geography. He treated the paint like a map, reading its terrain before every shot. The Turkish coaching staff noticed, too. Adjustments were called. They assigned their most athletic big to shadow Mateo on every attempt. A constant body, a constant obstacle. For 2 possessions, it worked. Mateo was boxed out decisively. But on the third, he slipped behind the defender at the exact moment the shot left the guard's hands. The ball bounced softly off the rim. Mateo was already airborne. Halftime arrived with Mateo tallying 11 rebounds. The arena buzzed with disbelief. The narrative of physical mismatch was dissolving possession by possession inside the Turkish locker room. Frustration replaced confidence. The coaches emphasized discipline. "Find number 15, they repeated. Mateo, meanwhile, sat quietly in his corner, breathing evenly. He was not chasing statistics. He was chasing respect. The third quarter began with urgency from the Turkish side. Shots came faster. Bodies crashed harder. Mateo's jersey stretched from repeated grabs, but he never looked at the officials. Midway through the quarter, a missed three-pointer bounced high above the rim. Mateo fought through 2 defenders, tipped the ball once, recovered it, and tipped it again. The crowd rose to its feet. Then came the sequence that shifted everything. A long jumper clanged off iron. Mateo slipped inside position and tipped the ball to himself. Reset. A quick putback attempt missed. He rose again, tipping it forward. Chaos erupted in the paint. On his third effort, he secured the ball firmly and kicked it out to perimeter for a made 3. 3 offensive rebounds in a single possession. The Turkish bench signaled timeout immediately. Their players stared at one another in disbelief. The scout closed his notebook slowly. What he was witnessing did not fit neatly into scouting templates. Mateo had just overpowered a lineup built on length, not with height, but with refusal. As play resumed, the scoreboard revealed the growing disparity on the glass. 17 rebounds for Mateo. The Turkish centers, despite their size, trailed collectively. The arena noise shifted from curiosity to conviction. Each rebound became symbolic. Each possession extended felt like a statement. The underdog was not merely participating in the showcase. He was redefining it. The Turkish scout leaned forward now, elbows on knees, studying details beyond measurement. Mateo's first step toward the rim began before shots were released. His shoulders angled strategically to seal space. His awareness of ball rotation guided his positioning. These were not random hustles. They were disciplined habits formed through years of competing against taller imports back home. Late in the fourth quarter, fatigue began testing everyone. Turkish bigs bent at the waist, breathing heavily. Mateo's movements remained sharp. When another long miss ricocheted high, he leaped through traffic, securing his 22nd rebound. The whistle blew moments later. The game ended with the Filipino side victorious, but the final score felt secondary. What lingered was a silence from earlier in the afternoon, now replaced by applause. The Turkish scout approached Mateo after the handshake line. There was no public spectacle, no dramatic reversal, just a quiet exchange beneath arena lights. "You compete bigger than your height," the scout admitted. It was not an apology. It was acknowledgement. In the days that followed, clips of Mateo's performance circulated online. Analysts debated the meaning of functional height versus listed height. Discussions extended beyond Manila, touching European forums and scouting departments. The idea that positioning and anticipation could outweigh centimeters gained renewed attention. One game did not rewrite global standards, but it questioned them. Within weeks, inquiries arrived from European development programs. Not guaranteed contracts, but invitations, summer workouts, extended evaluations. Mateo's name appeared in scouting databases, previously closed to players of his profile. The Turkish scout updated his report, replacing undersized with plays above size. A subtle shift in language, but powerful in implication. Back home, young Filipino players watched closely. They saw someone who resembled them competing against towering athletes without shrinking. Coaches in the Philippine Basketball Association referenced Mateo's tape when teaching rebounding fundamentals. It became a study in leverage and timing rather than vertical leap, a blueprint built on discipline. European observers began exploring prospects beyond traditional physical thresholds. The emphasis on motor, wingspan, and instinct gained traction. Scouts acknowledged that standing height did not always translate to impact. Mateo's performance in Manila became a case study discussed quietly in meeting rooms. Not revolutionary, but instructive. For Mateo, life returned to routine training sessions and early morning lifts. There were no parades, only preparation. He understood that one showcase does not guarantee longevity, but it can open doors previously sealed by assumption. Every repetition in the weight room carried new purpose. Months later, he stepped onto a European practice court for a trial session. The ceilings were higher, the language unfamiliar, but the rim was the same height. The ball bounced with the same rhythm. Rebounding still required timing, leverage, and will. Measurements remained unchanged. His approach remained relentless. The Turkish scout watched from the sidelines again, this time without skepticism. He observed how Mateo communicated on defense, how he anticipated missed shots before others reacted. The earlier dismissal felt distant now. Growth had occurred on both sides. One had proven, the other had learned. In basketball, narratives shift slowly. Height will always matter. Length will always influence matchups. But heart alters outcomes in ways metrics cannot fully capture. Mateo's 22 rebounds were not an accident. They were accumulated evidence against a narrow definition of potential. The Philippines has long produced players defined by resilience rather than size. Mateo embodied that tradition. His performance did not erase structural challenges, but it illuminated possibility. A single night in Manila forced an experienced European evaluator to reconsider long-held assumptions about stature and suitability. And somewhere in a scouting database connected to the EuroLeague, a note now reads differently. Not too small, not insufficient, simply relentless. The underdog did not argue with words. He argued with rebounds. And in the quiet arithmetic of effort versus height, Filipino humanity claimed his victory.